This presentation is on my literature review on leading inclusive schools in Alberta. It will share key information, my argument, and significance to inclusion in education. My research came about after a challenging year transitioning from an elementary teacher to a special education teacher and learning leader position within the same school. The challenge and inquiries for me began when I started to recognize barriers and misunderstandings regarding our students with challenging needs. I held perceptions of our school being inclusive. However, experience that I had with coworkers really pushed me to question what was triggering stress, frustration, and overall negativity around teaching students. I believe there is an undefined resistance to how this policy of inclusive education is perceived and influenced from school to school. Upon deeper reflection and awareness of my own assumptions of what I consider to be barriers and misunderstandings of inclusion, as well as the influence throughout the process of our coursework, my inquiry developed further. This made the change of direction in my paper. There is a growing emphasis on leadership and involvement in creating a school context that supports inclusion in Alberta. Through identifying suggestions for administrators to consider when effectively guiding teachers to be leaders and ensuring optimal learning for all students, this will demonstrate significant progress for inclusion in education. Alberta Education recently developed a new document called the Leadership Quality Standards, which will be implemented this fall. I use this document as a lens to gain insight into the expectations of a leader within my school district, and how did this document support moving inclusionary practices forward through being an effective leader. This article will demonstrate that the LQS can guide effective leadership, which will support the sustainability of inclusive learning environments. I argue that administrators play a key role in establishing and supporting inclusive education in their schools. As well, I aim to provide suggestions for leaders to consider when guiding and leading teachers to provide an optimal learning for all students. In reviewing studies in effective leadership and inclusive schools, it revealed three main themes: the barriers to teachers' practice, policy for inclusive education, and administrative leadership. The LQS proved impactful in identifying its future role in supporting inclusive ed, yet poses unanswered questions to its implementation and overall impact. Literature shows perplexities and misunderstandings about inclusion. Initiatives as the Action on Inclusion, promoted in 2010 and then removed the following year without a clear replacement, left people wondering where inclusion stands in Alberta. Alberta Education had created visionary principles for inclusive ed that are thoughtfully interwoven into the new Alberta Quality Standards. Research proves the important roles that policy, support, and leadership have in guiding the success of an inclusive system in a setting as complex as a school. Alberta Education's direction is the goal of an inclusive education system is to provide all students with the most appropriate learning environments and opportunities for them to best achieve their potential. The literature indicates that some leaders struggle with implementation and have identified barriers which persist in many schools. These barriers included negative attitudes, lack of training or knowledge in inclusionary delivery of curriculum, limited resources, limited collaboration, and communication. Administrative leadership has been typically overlooked in most studies on inclusion. Studies indicate that the action a principal takes in establishing a shared vision, promoting collaboration, providing or encouraging formal and informal professional development, and as well as acknowledging and addressing challenges in the school, are needed to support the education and well-being of all students. The newly designed LQS widens the scope for all educators to be considered as school leaders. By supporting teachers as leaders and embracing collaborative professionalism, the effectiveness of inclusion in Alberta will improve, and Alberta Education's movement towards inclusionary environments where all students of all abilities can learn can be fully supported. Due to the upcoming implementation of the LQS document into leadership practices in Alberta this fall, one should expect this document to change through its infancy. When looking more critically, one may wonder, how does one know they're meeting the competencies and indicators? How is this document used in practice, and is the certification delivered based on a leader's performance? How is it measured? Suggestions for administrators. Overall, research has proven to show that administrators should provide a multi-layer approach to establish effective inclusionary practices. Collaboration and communication coincide with building relational trust, which can foster through one's active and present leadership. Further suggestions include detailing the meaning, common language, and understanding behind the definition of inclusive education, as it is detrimental to the shared vision contextualized by staff. Furthermore, the importance of high-quality, meaningful, and applicable professional development is ideal. as well as having an option to provide coaching from leaders. Principals require a team of leaders and teachers to develop an effective school environment. The LQS Universal Guide of Pedagogical Outcomes on Improving One's Practice. Therefore, it would seem the LQS widens the scope for all educators to be considered school leaders, providing a positive step towards teacher leadership and collaboration, directly improving inclusion in Alberta. Future research should examine the ongoing development and implementation of the TQS and LQS document as they pertain to inclusive education, as well as how do these documents support the advancement of teachers as leaders in their schools. I encourage you to reflect on your experiences and consider, as a leader, how can I make a change in my practice to better my influence and support on inclusion in my school? And as a teacher interested in leadership, how will I utilize the new LQS to support colleagues and influence inclusion in my school? Thank you, and I welcome any further questions you may have.